I was a U.S. Special Forces soldier deployed to Afghanistan, serving my country in the ongoing war against terror. It was a difficult mission, filled with danger and uncertainty, but I was proud to be a part of the team. One night, as my unit was patrolling a remote area of the country, we saw something that defied explanation. It was a skeleton, walking through the desert as if it were a living creature. At first, we thought that it might be an enemy soldier in disguise, but as we approached, we could see that it was something else entirely. The skeleton was old, ancient, and yet it moved with an agility and strength that should have been impossible. We aimed our weapons at the creature, ready to defend ourselves if necessary, but it didn't seem to notice us. Instead, it continued to walk through the desert, its bones rattling with each step. We were stunned, unable to comprehend what we were seeing. It was a clear violation of everything we knew about biology and the laws of physics. We followed the skeleton, keeping a safe distance, but it didn't seem to be leading us anywhere. It was simply walking, as if it had no destination or purpose. As we continued to watch, we saw other skeletons join the first one. They seemed to emerge from the sand, rising up to join their companion in the walk through the desert. We were frightened, unsure of what to do. We had never encountered anything like this before, and we didn't know how to respond. And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the skeletons vanished into the sand, leaving us alone in the darkness. We reported the incident to our superiors, but they were skeptical. They told us that it was likely a hallucination, a trick of the mind brought on by the stress of the mission, but we knew what we had seen. We had witnessed something that was beyond explanation, something that defied our understanding of the world. Over the next few days, we began to see other strange occurrences. We saw shadowy figures moving in the darkness and heard strange whispers in the wind. We knew that we were being watched, and we didn't know by whom. As time went on, the incidents became more frequent and more intense. We saw ghostly apparitions and heard blood-curdling screams in the night. We tried to ignore it, to focus on the mission at hand, but it was difficult. We were on edge, constantly looking over our shoulders, waiting for the next strange occurrence. And then, one night, we were attacked. It was a fierce battle, with bullets flying and explosions ringing out across the desert. But it wasn't the enemy that was attacking us. It was something else, something that we couldn't see. We fought back with everything we had, but it was like trying to fight a ghost. The creatures seemed to be everywhere at once, surrounding us with their invisible presence. In the end, we were lucky to escape with our lives. We retreated to our base, shaken and traumatized by the experience. We reported the incident to our superiors, but they didn't seem to believe us. They told us that it was likely a coordinated attack by the enemy and that we had simply been caught off guard, but we knew the truth. We had encountered something that was beyond explanation, something that defied our understanding of the world. Over the years, I've thought about that night often. I wonder if the creatures are still out there watching us from the shadows. I wonder if they are friendly, or if they are waiting for their next opportunity to strike. But most of all, I wonder about the nature of the universe and about the secrets that it holds. I know now that there are forces at work in the world that we cannot see or understand, and that sometimes those forces can be dangerous. As I reflect on my experiences in Afghanistan, I can't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. Despite the danger and uncertainty, I feel privileged to have witnessed something so extraordinary. But at the same time, I know that the experience has left its mark on me. I've struggled with nightmares and flashbacks, and I've found it difficult to trust the world around me. It's a reminder that the paranormal is not just something that happens in movies and books. It's a real and tangible part of our world, and it can have a profound impact on those who encounter it. As for the creatures themselves, I can only hope that they are not malevolent. Perhaps they are simply curious, or maybe they are guardians of some ancient secret. Whatever the case may be, I know that they are out there watching us from the shadows, and I know that someday someone else will encounter them, just as I did. For those brave souls, I offer this advice. Keep an open mind and don't be afraid to embrace the unknown. There is much to discover in this world, and sometimes the most extraordinary things are the ones that defy explanation. I was a Navy SEAL soldier, part of a highly trained and specialized unit sent deep into the mountains of Afghanistan. Our mission was simple: infiltrate a known enemy stronghold and gather intelligence to help our forces push forward. What we didn't know was that we would soon face a threat far more dangerous than the enemy we were trained to fight. We had been hiking through the rugged terrain for days, following the river that snaked through the valley. As night fell, we set up camp in a small cave, the entrance barely visible from the trail. It was a perfect spot to rest and regroup before continuing our mission. As we sat around the fire, our team leader, Lieutenant Hayes, briefed us on the plan for the next day. We would make our way to the enemy compound, assess the situation, and report back to base. We were a seasoned team, and we knew our roles well. The plan was solid, but the night had other plans for us. It began with a low growl, like the rumble of a distant storm. It echoed through the mountains, sending shivers down our spines. We exchanged uneasy glances, none of us wanting to admit that we were unnerved by the sound. "Probably just the wind," muttered Johnson, one of the squad snipers, as he took a swig from his canteen. We all nodded in agreement, trying to convince ourselves that it was nothing to worry about. But as the night wore on, the sounds became more frequent and more unsettling. They were guttural, primal noises, like the cries of some ancient beast lost to time. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, stalked by something we couldn't see. At first light, we broke camp and continued our trek, eager to put as much distance between us and the strange sounds as possible. The enemy compound was only a few miles away, and we had no time to waste. But as we made our way deeper into the mountains, an unsettling feeling persisted. The air seemed to grow thicker, charged with an energy we couldn't quite understand. It was as if the very mountains themselves were whispering a warning, urging us to turn back. Despite our growing unease, we pressed on. We were, after all, Navy SEALs, trained to face the unknown and overcome it, but this was unlike anything we had ever encountered. As we approached the compound, we noticed that something was off. There were no guards posted, no signs of life at all. The whole place seemed to have been abandoned in a hurry. The doors were left wide open, and equipment lay scattered about, as if the occupants had fled in terror. We cautiously entered the compound, weapons at the ready, but instead of finding the enemy, we found only silence and the lingering stench of death. The once bustling base was now a tomb, its inhabitants seemingly vanished without a trace. As we searched the compound for clues, we began to find the remains of the soldiers who had once occupied it. They had been torn apart, their bodies mutilated beyond recognition. The sight was enough to make even the most hardened of us recoil in horror. It was then that we heard the growls again, closer this time and filled with a hunger we could feel in our bones. We knew that whatever had done this to the enemy soldiers was still nearby, and we were its next prey. We quickly formed a defensive perimeter, our backs against the walls of the compound. The growls grew louder, and the air seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Then, with a howl that shook the very ground beneath us, they came. The creatures were like nothing we had ever seen before. They were massive, standing well over 8 feet tall and covered in coarse, matted hair. Their eyes burned with a cold, inhuman intelligence, and their mouths were filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. We opened fire, our bullets tearing through the creatures' thick hides. But it was as if they felt no pain, their monstrous forms continuing to advance despite the hail of gunfire. We fought with everything we had, drawing on years of training and experience. But for every creature we managed to bring down, 2 more seemed to take its place. It soon became clear that we were outnumbered and outmatched. Our team leader, Lieutenant Hayes, made the difficult decision to call for extraction. Our mission had failed, but our priority now was to survive and warn the world of the nightmare we had discovered. As we fought our way back to the extraction point, we lost comrades one by one, each of them making the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that the rest of us could make it out alive. We couldn't save them, but we could honor their memory by telling their story. We were eventually rescued, a Black Hawk helicopter swooping in to pluck us from the jaws of death. As we soared away from the mountains, we knew that we had barely escaped with our lives, but horrors haunted us long after we returned home. The nightmares were relentless, filled with the images of the monstrous creatures that had almost killed us. We tried to tell our superiors about what we had encountered, but they dismissed our story as the ravings of traumatized soldiers. But we knew the truth. We had faced a threat far beyond anything we had ever been trained to fight, and it was still out there, lurking in the shadows of the mountains. Years later, we heard reports of similar attacks in other parts of the world. The creatures had been sighted in remote areas, leaving a trail of death and destruction in their wake. We knew then that it was only a matter of time before they came for us again. We formed a secret group, dedicated to tracking down and eliminating the creatures that had haunted us for so long. It was a dangerous mission, one that would take us to the ends of the earth and back. But we were Navy SEALs, and we would never stop fighting until the threat was neutralized, and so we set out into the unknown once more, determined to face our demons and emerge victorious. The horrors of that fateful mission in Afghanistan had changed us forever, but we had become something stronger, something more resilient. We were the soldiers who had faced the unimaginable and lived to tell the tale. I was a U.S. Navy SEAL on a mission in Afghanistan. It was a routine patrol, or so we thought. We were deep in the mountains, surrounded by nothing but rocks and sand. Suddenly we heard a noise, a rustling in the bushes. We thought it might be an enemy fighter, so we approached cautiously. But what we saw was unlike anything we had ever seen before. It was a creature about the size of a small bear, but it looked nothing like any animal we had ever encountered. Its skin was a sickly green color, and it had long, sharp claws that glinted in the sunlight. We were all taken aback by the sight of it. We had been trained to expect the unexpected, but this was something else entirely. The creature looked at us with eyes that were too intelligent for an animal. It seemed to be studying us, as if deciding whether we were a threat. We stood there, unsure of what to do, when suddenly it lunged at us. We opened fire, but the creature was too quick for us. It dodged our bullets with ease, and its claws sliced through our armor as if it were made of paper. We retreated, but the creature followed us. It was relentless, chasing us through the mountains as we tried to escape. We were out of ammunition, and we knew that we were outmatched. But just as the creature was about to strike, something amazing happened. Another creature, identical to the first, appeared out of nowhere. They communicated with each other in a language we couldn't understand, and then they both vanished into thin air. We were stunned. What had just happened? Were these creatures some kind of hallucination brought on by the harsh conditions of the mountains? We returned to base, shaken and confused. We reported what had happened, but no one believed us. We were told that we had probably just encountered some kind of rare animal, or perhaps we were suffering from battle fatigue, but we knew what we had seen, and we couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else going on. Over the next few weeks, we continued our patrols, but we kept our eyes open for any sign of the creatures. We asked the locals about them, but they either denied their existence or gave us strange, cryptic answers. And then one day we received a message from an Afghan villager. He claimed to have information about the creatures, and he was willing to meet with us. We were skeptical, but we decided to investigate. We met with the villager, who told us an incredible story. He claimed that the creatures were not of this world, but were in fact visitors from another dimension. They had come to Earth to study us, and they had been observing our actions for centuries. The villager told us that the creatures were peaceful and that they had no intention of harming us. They were simply curious about our planet, and they wanted to learn more about us. We were skeptical, but the more we thought about it, the more it made sense. The creatures had shown no signs of aggression, and they had vanished without a trace. It was as if they had simply returned to their own world. We reported what we had learned to our superiors, but they were skeptical. They dismissed our story as the product of an overactive imagination. But we knew the truth. We had seen the creatures with our own eyes, and we knew that there was something out there beyond what we could see. Years later, I still think about that day in the mountains. I wonder if the creatures are still out there, watching us, learning from us. And I wonder if we will ever truly understand the mysteries of the universe, or if they will always remain beyond our grasp. After our encounter with the creatures, we were never quite the same. We had been exposed to something that was beyond our comprehension, something that had shattered our understanding of the world. We began to question everything we thought we knew, and we started to explore the unknown. We researched the paranormal, the supernatural, and the unexplained. We sought out answers to questions that we never knew we had, and then one day we received a message. It was a coded message sent through a secure channel that only a few people had access to. The message contained coordinates and a time, and it was signed with a symbol that we didn't recognize. We knew that it was a message from the creatures. They had found a way to communicate with us, and they wanted to meet. We debated whether or not to accept the invitation. It was risky, and we had no idea what might happen if we agreed to the meeting. But we knew that we couldn't ignore the opportunity to learn more about the creatures and their world. We gathered a team and set out to the meeting place. It was deep in the mountains, in a remote area that was difficult to reach. But we were determined to make contact with the creatures. When we arrived, we found that the creatures were already there. They were waiting for us, and they seemed pleased that we had come. We communicated with them using a special device that had been developed by a team of scientists. The creatures spoke in a language that we still didn't understand, but the device was able to translate their words into English. They told us about their world, a place that was beyond our understanding. They showed us images of their planet, which was unlike anything we had ever seen. It was a place of beauty and wonder, a world that was filled with life and energy. They also told us about their mission, which was to observe and learn. They had been watching us for centuries, and they had learned much about our world and our people, but they also warned us about the dangers of our planet. They told us that we were on the brink of destruction, and that we needed to change our ways if we wanted to survive. We listened to their words with a mixture of awe and fear. We had never imagined that there was so much we didn't know, so much that we had been blind to. And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the creatures were gone. They vanished into thin air, leaving us with more questions than answers. We returned to our base, changed by the experience. We knew that we had been given a glimpse into a world that was beyond our understanding, and we were humbled by it. Years later, I still think about that day in the mountains. I wonder if we will ever see the creatures again, or if they will continue to watch us from afar. But I also wonder about the future of our planet, and about the role that we will play in shaping it. The creatures had warned us about the dangers that we face, and it is up to us to heed their words and work to create a better world. Our encounter with the creatures had been a reminder that there is still so much that we don't know, and that there is still so much to discover in the world around us. And I, for one, am eager to continue exploring the unknown.